Congratulations on your LEHR Garden. The first question you probably got is, how do I water my LEHR Garden? Now, LEHR Garden was designed to be primarily self-watering, and that system tends to work pretty well. But I want to walk you through how it works so that you can understand how to mess with it, how to maintain it if you need to. So the first thing we're going to start with is the spigot. We put a timer that looks a little bit like this. We have a couple of different versions that we use. And this timer is set to turn the water off and on. So you want to leave the spigot on at all times, and then this guy will manage the water flow to and from the garden. So there's two ways that water enters the garden. If this timer turns on, there's down here in the tank, there's a float valve, and that float valve will top off the tank as it needs water. If it doesn't need water, it won't run. The other thing that we've got is there's a spray bar on the garden here, and if that is on, which you would leave it on if you have recently reset the garden and the soil is still just starting to break down, or if you're trying to start seedlings, then that would add water from the tap. Okay, so we want to actually leave this valve off if we're not actively adding water to the system. So once we've got water into the system, we've got a pump down in the tank. There's a timer that looks pretty much like this, and that timer will turn on the pump. The pump will flow into the compost bin, the water will flow through the soil and then drain back down into the tank. So in terms of how I program it and why, I think that's a little bit worth explaining. So first of all, we have the timer that's on the spigot. Okay, so I typically set that for 3 times a day, 6 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. I'll set it for typically about 2 minutes, but we can go up or down depending on the time of day. That timer is mostly there to keep the sprout, it's more designed for the sprinkler system to keep the seedlings wet. If it's in the hot heat of summer and you've got the sprinkler turned off and the tank tends to run a little bit low, you can just add a couple more minutes to it, and that'll allow the float valve a little bit longer to work when it turns on. But other than that, it doesn't really need much changing. In terms of the timer for this, I typically turn it on twice a day, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. For 1 minute each for a garden this size. For something that's a little bit bigger like a farm bed, 2, sometimes 3 minutes. You don't really want to run it too much more than that because you'll draw the tank down a little bit too far, and you risk either running the pump dry or running the float valve entirely too long. So that's the basics of watering. Otherwise, it's pretty much designed to be self-sufficient.